You are listening to Bridging the Gap, the podcast where we talk about businesses going global with the help of localization.
Stay put to meet the marketing, product, and software experts that make brands international.
And learn strategies to speak your customer's language. Hi, all, and welcome to a new Bridging the Gap episode. I'm your host, Marta Coloma, and today's conversation is going to be focused on developer work. Specifically, we are going to talk about the conditions developers need to build the digital products we enjoy every day. This is called developer experience or DX, and it plays a big role in their working routines. Our guests today know it well. First, we've invited the CEO of DX Heroes, Prokop Simek, to explain it and discuss its importance. Hi, Prokop. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what DX Heroes does?
Hello, Marta. Hello, Dan. Nice to meet you. As you mentioned, my name is Prokop Simek. I'm CEO of DX Heroes, founded 5 years ago. I started as a software engineer, and then I enjoyed helping developers improve their lives through tools, processes, and basically increase their productivity or even help them in their life. The services DX Heroes covers is basically offering from end-to-end developer products, meaning tooling, automatization, and some activities or disciplines such as platform engineering, building basically developer products that developers love.
So our other guest today is Dan Charvát. He's the lead front-end developer at Localazy. Hello, Dan.
Hello, thanks for having me today.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do as a developer in Localazy?
I am the lead front-end developer at Localazy, which means that I work on the visual part of what users interact with at Localazy on a daily basis. But besides that, I'm also one of the co-founders in smaller companies. It means that I do a lot of other stuff as well. I talk to our customers. I do a lot of automations for the team to facilitate their work. And I really enjoy doing anything automation and development related at Localazy, whatever the team needs and things so.
Fantastic. Before Prokop chimes in and we talk about developer experience, I was wondering then if we could start the conversation with you actually. And if you can tell us as a developer if you've ever heard of this term, DX, developer experience, and how would you define it?
So I'll be completely honest. I hadn't heard about the term developer experience before I was invited. And at first I thought it's more about experience in a sense of seniority, how much experience you have, how many projects you worked on, how long have you been developing, maybe you've been a manager of a team or a project and so forth. So that was my first impression. But then I did my homework, studied a little bit more about the concept, browsed through the DX website. And now I understand more that it's about experience in a sense, like how comfortable are developers working with either external tools or how comfortable they are working for the given company or on the given project. But I'm very happy to hear more from Prokop himself, the guru of DX here today.
So Prokop, about the term DX, have you ever gotten questions about what does it mean and if it isn't just a fancy term, because some people might think you're even making it up if they don't know what it is about?
So the questions, what does it mean, are quite often, but the questions, if that's just a fancy term, I don't hear so often because I would say people usually don't ask. But I can say that from my perspective, it might sound as a buzzword. But on the other hand, all the companies, especially in these days, needs to save money, increase their productivity, their revenue, and basically be safe in this hard times. So the DX is basically just a specialization to the UX from my perspective. So as you want to focus on improving some department on some part of your company or product, this is a way how to get deeper and deeper and to fix all the bottlenecks there.
Well, I have to ask you. Now I know about UX, user experience, DX, but what about the other roles? Like, do we have something like marketing experience or UX writer experience?
Good question. Not sure if marketing experience exists, but there are definitely many more terms. Even UX as a user experience, DX developer experience. Sometimes it's used in DevX as an abbreviation because DX sometimes also means digital transformation. And then there are terms such as CX or EX. CX for customer experience. That's how your customers feel from using support, for example. And EX is sometimes used together with employees. So EX similar to ENPS, employee net promoter score, and so on. So EX is employee experience. How are they onboarded? And not just the engineers, developers, but all the roles that you may have in your company.
So that sounds like all of these are interconnected at the end of the day, right? Like onboarding employers is just as important for developers as it is for other roles, right?
I would say so. It's just like a small detailed part of the UX.
Right.
So, from what I gathered from your explanation, is that DX is kind of treating your developers as if they were your customers, like the same or a similar concept than UX, but with your developers, right?
Right. And also meaning engineers or developers inside of a company or even outside of the companies. So that's why we split the discipline to internal DX or external DX. But I don't think that it's generally used. So that's just our abbreviation.
I was just going to ask you that there's like internal and external DX, and I was wondering what's the difference? What's the difference between external and internal DX? Can you mention the targets of each of them?
Sure. When we talk about external developer experience, we usually talk about third parties, such as companies that want to integrate to your product, such as Localazy, or even use tools to make the work easier. That's basically the third-party developer company or team. When we talk about internal developer experience, it's more focused on developers inside of a company, how developers work, what habits they have, if they are efficient, if they have everything they need to basically finish their tasks.
Yeah. Dan, what is your take about this? Why do you think, in your experience, how do you say DX is important for the customers and the other way around? How is like your own UX as a developer important for you internally?
So you mean for the end customers who use the product?
The external and internal division.
Right. Well, nowadays, most of the products, especially software products, are somehow developed by the developers. It can be anything from a single person to a whole team, to a whole section or group of teams working on individual parts of the product. But at the end of the day, it's the developers who are necessary to create it, develop it, test it, and ship it to customers. So without them, there is no product for the end users to use. And I can say from my own experience that if you have highly motivated developers who feel appreciated, they don't feel constantly under pressure and stress that they need to finish something by the end of the day, week or so. It just makes up for a much better product, which transitively makes for a much better end user experience.
I'd like to add that all the developers basically need to finish their task, the features they need for their product. And as Dan mentioned, is strongly related with the business success, because as the users have all the features delivered fast or even in high quality, so that's the most important thing the end users see.
Okay, so apart from this, can you just walk us through the mechanisms you use to guarantee a better experience for developers?
So in terms of mechanisms, the first is to basically take a look on the processes and tools the developers have. It starts when we talk about third-party developers, meaning external developer experience. So it starts with some discovery of some product, how the developers can find the product and basically start using it. Discover if the product is suitable for them or not. What about the pricing and how easy it is to implement the product or even integrate. In terms of the integration, engineers and or some technical people that are responsible for choosing some solution are usually involved in the selection or analysis of such products. So this is why it's important, and just the business side is not enough. When we talk about the engineers within the companies, we start with the most common habit, and it's writing code. When they write the code, there are some practices such as don't repeat yourself, etc. The intention is to not spend much time on unnecessary tasks or manual tedious tasks. So that's where to focus.
Mm-hmm. Dan, what is your take about this? Does any of the elements that Prokop mentioned ring a bell for you? What do you value the most?
It does. It definitely does. It's always insightful and also interesting to hear something said aloud that you know inherently in yourself. Somebody says it out loud and points it out. All of a sudden, it connects all the points and makes much more sense. Both what Prokop said is important, the external and internal one. I would maybe talk a bit more about the internal one, because you, Marta, have your own developer experience, right? A few months ago, we found out that you're doing a lot of repetitive tasks and you couldn't help yourself on your own. You didn't know how. We as developers really hate repetitive work. Like anything we do twice or more, we look if it's maybe more efficient to automate it. And I think you can say from your experience that it saves you a lot of time in the long run, right?
Definitely. What Dan mentioned is I ran into some issues with the content production in Localazy, and I was having a hard time doing so many manual tasks that could actually be automated. Developers have the mind to automate and to make that path easier. And people in marketing, like me, for example, they don't usually think like that. Having like a service that is catering to the way developers think and having the features and the mechanisms to make it easier for them can definitely not only help them, but also other people in the team. So I kind of get what Dan is saying. And there's a very unique way of thinking that goes into the heads of developers, and catering to them can make everything much easier for them and for the rest of the team.
Exactly. And what I would like to add to it as well is that me and the other developers at Localazy as well are always open to help the others. And that comes from the fact that although not everything is perfect, and I think we will touch that topic later on as well, on average and on general, like developers at Localazy are satisfied with their developer experience, and happy developers are much more open to help the rest of the team as well, which, as Prokop says, leads to a greater business success in the long run.
My past experience says that there are two biggest issues in terms of developers, why they don't automate the stuff they would like to. The first issue is that they are just blind to their work or even the product, or they don't know how to do that, what to do. The second is that they are usually overloaded with tasks from business or project management. They need to deliver new features. Nobody asks for automation or even, for example, refactoring or spending time on basically stuff that's not able to see from the end user perspective.
Interesting insights. Of course, this can actually affect everyone in the team. So I was curious about what do you think, Prokop, about how developing a good developer experience for them can also affect the rest of the team internally?
Engineers or developers are also people that can bring new processes to the company. I can say from my experience that junior engineers or QA engineers, some project people don't understand usually technologies so much as developers. They can bring new ideas and new innovations to the company, how to basically boost the revenue.
Do you have anything to add about this, Dan? Do you agree?
Yeah, I would say I mostly agree. It probably depends also from developer to developer. Some developers are on the hunt for the new tools on their own. And again, generally the happy developers do that. While some other developers are more of a type of developers who are assigned that they should discover and research how the new tool could work for them. And then they do the research and try to integrate it and find out that it works out. But somebody else needs to come with the input.
Okay. So, Prokop, can you tell us a little bit about how you can find the right person to supervise the whole developer experience process internally?
Interesting topic, because I think that it might be quite difficult to find the right person. From my perspective, the right person to help you with the developer experience and to nail it needs to have a combination of skills, not just the hard skills, but especially the soft skills. When you want to help with DX, the person first needs to know a lot of technologies, such as the backend technologies, front-end technologies, cloud native, DevOps processes, and so on, and related tools to that. In terms of soft skills, also community building. So the person must be talkative and must find a way how to talk to developers and how to win their trust, basically. How to get on board them to improve their experience within the company.
That's interesting. Could you maybe elaborate a bit more? Because I can imagine that company is able to identify on its own that their DX is not in the best condition, and let's say that you would find the right person to help you. But then how the process looks like? Because you said yourself, like, you need to win the trust, and I know from my own experience that developers can be quite stubborn about changing how they do their daily stuff and the routines and such. So could you maybe talk a bit more about how it looks like, the whole process?
The process usually starts with some analysis or basically workshop, because we or the person on the DX position needs to find and learn more about the company, about their processes and so on. As I said, the people within the company are quite blind to the processes and ways of work. So this DX role needs to understand all the knots about deployment, development, and security requirements, for example, that are a huge topic in the enterprise companies. And this must be taken in all the results and the decisions, because if you won't satisfy, for example, securities, it can have a huge impact on the whole company. So first is some workshop to identify all the bottlenecks or the good parts. Then you need to find the quick wins, basically, how to move forward as fast as possible. So basically automating CI/CD is usually the easiest way, because there are many bottlenecks. Some of the deployments are not fully automated to production environment, staging environment, or some other steps. Even, for example, linters usually, or code formatters. Developers usually run the formatters on their own machines, and the CI/CD has not integrated the linter there. So that's, for example, one of the quick wins. Then it depends on the requirements. These days, many companies want to save money in IT department. So they are looking for measuring developer productivity, or even firing some developers and looking for new ones that will be more efficient. In this form, I think that it's important to understand the whole process from A to Z, because thanks to this, you can fix all the bottlenecks in the process.
Very interesting. Could you, Prokop, tell us a little bit about any specific case studies where you experienced this process and put it into motion with any DX clients?
Sure. To add to the previous topic and even to our case studies, I can mention, to explain the process better, that first in one large company, we had to identify those pains, offer some quick wins. Then we realized that there are many duplications in code. So we started writing libraries, SDKs, developer tools, call it as you want. And thanks to this, we were able to move all the complexities of auditing, monitoring, logging to those libraries. So basically the whole work the developers need to do was just to integrate the SDK to their service. They have hundreds of such services. So there are many teams that can just reuse the SDK in all their apps. Always when there is a new update of the SDK, new functionalities, all the teams are automatically informed about the new versions. They can just run the tests and merge the code to their code base to speed up the work. They don't need to take care about maintaining those part of codes that sends just the audit information to some database and so on. So this is one of the large companies, and together with that, with those SDKs, also discoverability in such large companies is important. When you have hundreds of engineers and you have dozens of teams, there usually happens that those teams write some part of codes again and again. And this discipline is called platform engineering. The platform engineering activity discipline can merge those activities until under one umbrella, and together with that, catalogize all the tools that are available across the whole company, across the whole teams at one place. There is one huge product that's open sourced. It's Backstage from Spotify. And this is an internal developer portal where all the developers can search for all the APIs across the company, SDKs, propose some initiatives that they face some issue and they want to resolve the issue on the organizational level.
Very useful indeed. Do you think that you could find in your head some other example, but that has to do with the external experience of the developers, like someone who had a product that needed to be catered to developers?
The external DX is suitable even for small companies because the internal DX is the most efficient in large companies where are many developers, many teams. And when a large company or even small company want to improve their external developer experience, they usually build public dev portal, write documentation, and SDKs in multiple technologies to make the third-party integration easier. What I'm proud to is a huge developer portal that aggregates 9 finance APIs. So there was a lot of communication about all the integrations from country to country. And together with that, the dev portal aggregates all the APIs at one place, so developers can just sign up, create their app, choose their technology to offer the documentation that's relevant to them, and thanks to that, configure all the security aspects of all apps. And then I would say in 10 minutes, try a sandbox and try how the API behaves. So that's a case study I'm the most proud of.
Obviously, the resources are very important for developers, so they work quickly and they just can iterate and test. I don't know, Dan, if you can just talk about any other things that you personally have witnessed in Localazy that developers value in a product.
Right. Well, I can definitely relate with what Prokop said. I talk from my personal experience that as a developer, I do like the challenge, of researching a new tool and figuring out how to integrate it, how to maybe create what we call an adapter between one tool and the another. So that's the challenge we like to tackle. What we don't like, however, is the challenge of even understanding what the tool does, the challenge of running it locally and testing out if it even makes sense to use it in your stack, and etc. etc. So if you have a clear if you have a clear documentation, maybe sandbox or playground or demo when you can try it out before you even attempt to integrate it in your tool, that's so helpful.
Exactly. As deep as you can get from the developer perspective, that's better, because developers or even companies don't want to invest much time to integrations and so on. So when someone comes to the website, like engineer, developer, they need to find the technical documentation as soon as possible, as fast as possible, and then to try the sandbox. They need to report how difficult the integration is to their managers, and so when they don't have this information available, they will decide to go to the competition. So basically, you will lose your potential customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I can add from our own experience at Localazy that developers, when they first come and try our tool, they don't want to set up the automation in full immediately through CLI or API or whatnot. No, they use the manual upload first to try out the product. Then they try to figure it out on their own. If it's somehow understandable, then they are satisfied and they continue to go into the documentation, and then they read more about whether they can automate it, whether they can integrate it with their workflow, regardless of, if they use, I don't know, one branch or they have multiple stages before they push it into production. And we can accommodate all of it. We can help them automate all of it. But it's interesting that even developers just want to first try it out in the easiest manner possible, which doesn't include that much automation.
I can definitely confirm we did a DX audit for you, and I was surprised as smooth is integrating Localazy to our applications. So your DX is amazing.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I definitely know about some areas that could be improved, but it's very, very compelling and nice to hear that. All right, maybe I would add a bit more about that. So as I said, the developers want to try it out manually as much as possible, but usually you just want to set it up and forget. And that's what I also look for and like about the tools the most, that you dedicate some time to find out and research how it works, and you dedicate more time to automate the process via scripts, API, and whatnot. But then at the end of the day, you just want to forget that it even exists and it just works. And that's what customers look very often for at Localazy as well.
I was wondering, guys, if we could talk a little bit about measuring developer productivity, because it's a hot topic. And I was wondering if Dan could tell us, how do you measure developer productivity in your day-to-day work at Localazy?
Right, so that's a complete 360 switch. Wow, completely different topic. All right, so measuring productivity. I think there's not a single right answer to that, especially because a lot of things that developers work on come from either customers or from other team members. At the beginning, it may sound like, okay, this is going to take an hour. That's fine. I can tackle dozens of such tasks in a sprint. We also follow the agile methodology, so we have two week long sprints. But then all of a sudden you realize that, oops, it doesn't take 1 hour. This is going to take 1 day. And if you miscalculate it multiple times in each sprint, then it really skews the productivity estimates that you set up at the beginning. And it's also harder to evaluate afterwards. So the way how we do it is that we try to estimate how difficult each task or step or whatnot is going to be. And at the end, we evaluate how accurate we are. It helps us to be more precise in the next sprints. But with all that being said, we are still humans. We don't always make the best estimates. So part of this exact measurement is also a subjective evaluation of, are we still as efficient or ideally more efficient than in previous month, quarter, year? Are we able to deliver more? Is our product robust, or even a small change? Does it take longer than it used to? So I would say it's a combination of exact measurements and subjective evaluation among all the developers.
Then I just want to ask, If someone asks you to measure your slash developer productivity, what are you thinking about at first?
So if I was asked this, at first I would be very frightened that somebody is asking me directly how efficient I am. But if it's more about the team in full, I think we would be more asked about trying to be retrospective, and to look how the team is efficient. Because sometimes it's not an individual problem, but very often it's a team problem. There are bottlenecks somewhere, and it's not necessarily a failure or a mistake on a single person. Therefore, I think it's important if the whole team thinks about it and try to identify those bottlenecks and ideally work on a remedy to fix those.
Interesting. Thank you. I can tell that I can't agree with you because usually this is a huge misunderstanding about developer productivity. I would better call it development productivity. As you mentioned, that leads to the team. But I don't think that it's usually developer himself or the team. The developer productivity is usually measured across the whole system, across the whole company, across the whole process. There are two famous frameworks which can help you to measure the developer productivity. One of them is called DORA metrics. I think that it's more for mature companies that already started measuring productivity before. The second framework I prefer more because it's more suitable for companies that want to somehow start measuring the developer productivity is SPACE. SPACE is some abbreviation, and it basically allows you to define any metrics you want. But the most important part in measuring developer productivity, or better for me, development productivity, is that you measure to identify those bottlenecks on the whole end-to-end way from code to the production. And it's usually a problem of the whole setup, whole configuration. And this is a process issue, not the team issue. Of course, that there might be some issue on the team level, but from my perspective, it's more about measuring and identifying the systematic problems.
All right. Thanks for clarification.
Okay, so guys, we are nearing the end of the episode, but before we go, I wanted to ask you about another hot topic, which is AI. Prokop, I don't know what's your experience with AI and developer experience right now, and how is it connected? What are clients asking you about? And does it really help improve developer experience?
Definitely. I can say that AI definitely improve the DX. Dan, what AI tools or use?
I code in VS Code, and I use a bunch of extensions that help me with completion. Sometimes even help me with write stats and explain code and such. But mostly I rely on my skills for now rather than on AI, with the exception of when I code in a language that I don't know that well, but I know what I want to achieve. And in those cases, it's really helpful.
Yes, I love AI because when I come home, I sit down to a computer and write my own code without any people say. And the AI can boost the developer efficiency or the productivity, especially the generative AI, as it can propose some lines of code and so on. So I usually use, for example, Cursor IDE that has embedded many models to write the code, even across the files, which GitHub Copilot cannot do. I think that GitHub Copilot can help you just in one file and not across the whole structure. AI, generative AI code, identifying, describing for some product owner, for example, what the code does. It's very useful. Even last week was released some feature to some models that it can identify or draw the architecture diagrams based on the code, based on that. So I think that AI is a future of engineering. Of course, that there is a dark side that engineers are afraid of losing their jobs because of AI. from my point of view, I think that there will be much higher push to junior developers. The seniority for juniors will be much higher than was 5 years ago, but it can speed up the development of any feature. And yesterday I had some discussion about AI in coding, and it was terrible what we talked about, some conspirations and so forth.
Well, some companies are. I can understand that, like, are afraid that that they are learning from their code. Well, maybe, but it's the same as if you upload an image to the internet. Some generated image might contain 1 pixel from your image. Well, happens.
But you don't want to share your code, but many people share their pictures, videos on TikTok, for example, and we know what TikTok does. So I don't understand that.
I don't mind it. I understand it probably to some degree, but I don't mind it personally. But yeah, I wanted to add to this the feature of AI. I would say that at the end of the day, it's a tool. It's not a replacement. If you learn how to use the tool efficiently, you're going to be a better developer and more competitive developer compared to the others. But I don't think it's going to replace us, at least not in our lifetime. And I read a really nice satiric tweet about it, or how do we call them now with, Twitter being renamed to X. I don't know how to call it nowadays, but it said that engineers are going to replace the day when customers are able to provide clear and exact specification of what they want to achieve. So never. And yeah, I think that's how it's going to be.
I had an interesting conversation this week with my colleague. He told me that he needs to learn more about this kind of AI, or this part of AI. And I asked him why, because in next 3 months it will change. So why learn that?
Well, I think that if you find how to use it, then it can definitely help you a lot. For example, I personally use it to write regular expressions for me because I'm very slow at writing those. Or I use it to generate SQL queries because, again, like, it's very easy to make a typo or miss something.
So now that everyone talks about AI as the future, I was also curious to ask you about anything else that is not AI. How is the future of developers going to look like? And is DX going to play like a huge part in it, do you think, Prokop?
Amazing question. I think, as I can see the future, AI will be still a part of the DX and will involve in the DXL. But what AI can't do is to behave as a human. So in terms of communication between people, or even identifying the issues between people, teams, and some human mistakes and personalities. So this is a part where all the X parts, DX, EX, and so on, will be important. The coding speed or tooling will be much better together with AI, but AI can't replace the human aspect.
What is your take on this? Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I would say that more and more industries that haven't relied on developers or automations as much are becoming more and more automated, and engineering becomes the more important aspect of it, be it sports industry, logistics, healthcare, and such. So I would say that each industry, and thus each company, is going to need more developers than they have nowadays. And at the same time, developers are still scarce. It's hard to find a good engineer, and I think it's going to be probably even harder in the future. So having good internal and external DX to facilitate the work of developers and make them happy is going to be more vital than ever in the future. I would say even in the short-term future.
It will be a winning strategy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Well, guys, we've run out of time. It's time to say goodbye. But first, I wanted to ask you, Prokop, where can we find more information about DX Heroes and what you do?
So you can find more information on our website, dxheroes.io, and I'm on LinkedIn, Prokop Simek. You can find me there, ask me for a connection or for some question. What we usually do at the beginning, when you have some struggles, we can offer you a free workshop and we can discover more about your struggles.
Dan, where can we find you?
So you can find me either on Twitter. My username is there at Dan_Charvát, or at Localazy.com. Especially if you would like to talk to me directly, if you go to localazy.com/book-demo, you can book a demo, and even though it doesn't say with whom, it's going to be with me most likely.
He'll certainly be there. So guys, thank you so much for being here, and see you everyone in the next episode of Bridging the Gap. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
If you like this episode, please follow our channel and add it to your favorites so you don't miss the next conversation. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube for updates and bonus content. Until next time, stay curious.